You're on to Dr. Cool Autofix. Welcome back to another interesting edition. Here today we're going to be talking about symptoms of a bad expansion valve. There's going to be an update prior to some other videos which I've created. So in this very update here, I'm not going to be listing all the symptoms. I'm actually going to be listing some other symptoms which is going to be updating the previous ones which I've actually listed on my channel. So what is expansion valve? Expansion valve is simply a metering device which is engineered to meter how much the liquid refrigerant that flows into the evaporator core. So most of the expansion valve is mounted just like 1 inch close to the evaporator, some 2 inch, but it should be very close so you can be able to notice the sensible temperature that is rising up through the sensing board that is right inside it, shining like a star. So when this very metering device fails, it often gets stuck closed. That is most of the symptoms which I've seen in most of the expansion valve or thermostatic expansion valve. So the first symptoms of a bad expansion valve is a poor cooling inside the cabin. If you started noticing that you have a poor cooling inside the cabin with the right refrigerant on, you could be having a bad expansion valve. Like I said at the context of this very video here, when it starts getting defective, it starts getting stuck closed. And when it starts getting stuck closed, it starts restricting the amount of liquid refrigerant that's flowing inside the AC evaporator core. And when it starts restricting the amount of liquid going inside the evaporator core, gaseous refrigerant made its way into the evaporator core, and this will result into a poor cooling of the system. Common symptoms of a bad expansion valve is warm or no cold filling on the suction line of the AC system circuit. So you have the big guy line, and you have, which is bigger than this my hand, and you have the small line. The small line is the liquid line, the big one is the gaseous line or the low pressure line, which fitted here, while the liquid one fits here. In practical, if you didn't see this line here, this bigger line here sweating, which is this same line here sweating, and you have a hand feel to it, this guy here, and it's not cold to touch, then it could be having a bad expansion valve on board, which often result into a poor cooling of the system. The third symptoms of a bad expansion valve is where you're noticing that some side of the AC system is getting colder than the other. This is an update, like I said, and this is a symptom which I noticed recently, and I was shocked to actually believe that this is expansion valve that is causing it, because every other materials are in good condition. The compressor, everything is in good condition, and this can often be intermittent, but sometimes it will get balanced up. You have exactly the same cold refrigerant, the same cold effect you're feeling from the driver far left corner, far left vent, and you're feeling exactly the same thing on the far right vent. But when you start seeing two of the vents, the two driver side, getting colder than the passenger side, you could be having a bad expansion valve on board, and replacing it is the only way, because this is not fixable or repairable. Fourth symptoms of a bad expansion valve is that the system takes time to cool. I've actually addressed this kind of problem before in most Mercedes model and BMW. When you notice that when you're on your car AC system, it takes quite a bit of time before you start feeling the cold sensation that is coming out of the vents. You could be having a bad expansion valve on board. That is creating a restriction, and that restriction kind of creates a delay in liquid refrigerant meeting the filling up the evaporator core as soon as possible. And when that delay happens, then there'll be delay in getting cold air inside the system. A replacement is often the best way with the OEM one. Number 5 symptoms of a bad expansion valve is hot liquid line. We have the suction line on one side, on the other side you have the liquid line. The liquid line should just be moderately warm, or even just not, it shouldn't be that sensible, not hot to touch. But when you touch it, I'm not talking about the discharge. There is a difference between discharge and liquid. The discharge is actually the line coming from the compressor to the condenser. But the line coming from the condenser to the expansion valve is a liquid line. So if you have it touched to it and it is hot to touch, then you could be having a bad expansion valve. Next symptoms of a bad expansion valve is you're finding that you're topping off refrigerant every now and then due to leaks. This is actually due to restriction in the high side of the AC system. That's creating a whole lot of pressure, too much pressure inside the system, and therefore build up heat. Increasing pressure increases heat temperature. So when that temperature increases, you find a weaker spot to damage, which is actually the O-ring seal rubbers that are used to secure the line from leakage. And when it gets shredded or burnt, then the refrigerant will quickly find its way to escape through this place, and that is why you often top off your refrigerant every now and then. I hope you find this very helpful, which I know you did, in resolving your car AC problem, power cooling, and the rest of them. Do subscribe to my channel and turn on your notification. I remain Dr. Cool, Auto Fix. See you on the next one. Bye for now.